If your pension statement says you will get $4,500 a month for life, you are probably only seeing half the math. Most people who worked for a government department or a large company spend 30 years waiting for one envelope, the statement of options. Then it finally shows up, 20 pages long, with 15 different payout combinations that read like they were written for someone else. You have been told your whole career that a defined benefit pension is the safest thing you will own. That part is true. But the same design that makes it safe also builds in a trap most people never see coming until the year it hits them, the bridge benefit drop. Here is the number that matters. Miscalculate how your pension bridge lines up with CPP and OAS, and you can lock in a permanent 36% cut to your government benefits, or hand over a tax bill big enough to wipe out your first 3 years of actually being retired. On a modest pension that is $15,000 or more, gone, because one form got filled out the wrong way. We are not going to repeat the standard advice here. We are going to walk through the exact mechanism behind something called the annuity leveling option, a choice most advisors quietly steer people away from, even though it can put 20% more money in your pocket during the years you actually have the energy to use it. If you are within 5 years of handing in your notice and you would rather keep that money than watch the CRA collect more of it than it should, hit subscribe. This channel builds playbooks specifically for people sitting on a Canadian defined benefit pension, trying to make sense of a decision they only get to make once. Here is the part of your statement of options that almost nobody reads twice as. It is usually labeled the level income option or the integrated option, and on paper it looks like a trick. It can raise your monthly pension check by up to 20% before you turn 65. Then, right on your 65th birthday, it drops. The break-even age, the point where the extra money you took early gets canceled out by the smaller checks later, typically lands somewhere between 80 and 85. That sounds like a reason to avoid it, and most advisors read it exactly that way. But before you cross it off, ask yourself a different question. Do you actually expect to still be cashing checks at 85? The mechanism underneath it works like this. Your pension plan is essentially lending you your own future CPP and OAS money early. Instead of waiting until 65 to start collecting those government benefits, the plan pays you an equivalent amount now, folded into your pension check. When you hit 65 and CPP and OAS actually start, your pension check shrinks by that same amount to balance it out. Nothing extra gets created. It just moves earlier. Plans are built this way because CPP and OAS were never designed to start before 65. Before that, you are living on your pension alone. And for a lot of people, that pension is thinner than it looks once. Property tax, a car payment, and a health premium come off the top. The integrated option exists to smooth that gap, not to trick you. The math behind it is real, but it is a genuine trade-off, not a scam. Most planners will still tell you not to touch this option, because on a spreadsheet it looks like a front-loaded tease, more now for less later. But that advice quietly assumes you will live well into your late 80s or 90s, and it treats every dollar the same no matter when you spend it. That is the invisible cost hiding inside playing it safe here. $1 at 62, when you can still travel, still climb a ladder, still take the grandkids camping, is not the same as $1 sitting in your account at 90. Choose the lower, level payout out of pure caution, and you may be trading your healthiest years for money you never get the chance to spend the way you planned. Think about what those extra dollars actually buy in your early 60s. A new roof does not wait for your CPP to start. Neither does a hip that needs replacing, or a grandchild's wedding 2 provinces away. Those are the years the extra money in option B was built for. I used to tell almost every client to take the level payout because it felt like the responsible choice. I was wrong about that, at least for some people. For someone with a shorter life expectancy running in the family, a real health history, or a debt they want gone before it costs more in interest. More now is not a tease. It is the difference between paying off the mortgage at 63 instead of dragging it out to 70. Let's look at what this actually does to a monthly budget. Option A, the level payout, pays $4,000 a month for life. Option B, the integrated payout, pays $4,800 a month until 65, then drops to $3,100 a month after that. If you are retiring at 60 with a health history that makes it unlikely you will see 85, or if you have set aside $50,000 for travel in your first 5 years of retirement, option B is putting the money where you can actually use it. But picking the right payout option only solves one piece of this. There is a tax form almost nobody files before 65 that quietly costs some couples $4,000 a year, and it has nothing to do with which pension option you chose. Most Canadians think you have to be 65 before you can split pension income with your spouse. That rule is real, but it only applies to RRIF withdrawals and RRSP annuities. It does not apply to your defined benefit pension. Once your DB pension has started, you can split that income with your spouse using CRA Form T1032, no matter what age you are. The reason this works comes down to how Canada's tax system is built. Each dollar you earn gets taxed at a higher rate than the last, so two spouses, each declaring $45,000, will almost always pay less combined tax than one spouse declaring $80,000 alone. Splitting a pension does not create new income. It just spreads the same income across two tax returns instead of one, so more of it sits in the lower brackets. Say spouse A collects an $80,000 pension, and spouse B brings in $10,000 from part-time work. Left alone, most of spouse A's income gets taxed at a much higher marginal rate than spouse B's. Shift $35,000 of that pension onto the joint return using the T1032 election, and you are moving money out of a higher bracket and into a lower one. On a split of that size, some couples see combined savings well over $4,000 a year, and that number repeats every single year you stay retired. That difference is not abstract. On a $60,000 split, we are talking about the kind of money that covers a full year of property tax, or several months of the mortgage, from filling out one form correctly. For a couple already juggling a mortgage renewal or a car that needs replacing, that is not a rounding error. There is a ceiling on how far you can push this. If splitting pushes the receiving spouse's net income over $95,323, the OAS recovery tax kicks in, and you start losing 15 cents of every dollar above that line back to the CRA. Split too aggressively trying to save on one tax bill, and you can accidentally trigger a second one. One more thing worth knowing here. Form T1032 splits pension income, not CPP or OAS. Those two get calculated and paid individually no matter what you do on your tax return. If your DB pension is thin and most of your household income actually comes from CPP and OAS, this particular move will not help much, and you need a different lever entirely. The trap most people fall into is not doing the math until the accountant does it for them in April, after the year is already locked in. Ask about a pension split before you retire, not after, so you can run the numbers while you still have room to adjust. Which spouse claims what? Splitting income solves a real problem, but it will not save you from what happens the day your bridge benefit disappears. That is a different kind of drop, and it catches people off guard even when the tax side is handled perfectly. Your pension bridge is built to end at 65. That is not a mistake or a fine print trick. It is literally how the plan was designed from day one. But when that extra $1,000 a month disappears right on schedule, it does not feel like something you planned for. It feels like a cut, even though you saw it coming for years. That feeling has a name. Psychologists call it loss aversion, and it is why so many people rush to start CPP the moment the bridge drops, just to patch the hole in their monthly income. It feels like fixing something. Often, it is actually a mistake that costs you for the rest of your life. This is where a real fear gets in the way of good math. A lot of people worry that the gap between when they stopped working and when they start CPP will show up as zero income years, dragging their CPP payment down forever. That fear is mostly wrong, and understanding why can take real pressure off this decision. CPP has something called the General Dropout provision. It automatically drops your lowest earning months from the calculation, up to 8 years worth, about 17% of your working life. If you retire at 60, those first 5 quiet years before CPP starts simply get excluded. They do not drag your average down. The CPP formula was built with exactly this kind of gap in mind. Picture 2 people retiring at 60 with identical CPP contribution histories. One panics and starts CPP immediately to cover the bridge gap, locking in a permanent 36% reduction. The other builds a bridge from savings instead, waits until 65 or later, and ends up with a monthly CPP payment that is hundreds of dollars higher every month for the rest of their life. Same career, same contributions, completely different outcome based on one decision made under pressure. So, if the fear of a broken CPP calculation is not the reason to grab it early, what is the actual trade-off? Take CPP at 65 and you get your full base amount. Wait until 70, and each month you delay adds 0.7% to your payment permanently. Wait the full 5 years, and you are looking at a 42% larger check for as long as you live. Take it at 60 instead of 65, and you are locked into a 36% permanent cut in exchange for 5 extra years of payments. There is no universal right answer here. Someone with a strong family history of living into their 90s is leaving real money on the table by rushing into CPP the moment the bridge drops out of loss aversion, not math. Someone with genuine health problems that make a shorter retirement likely has a real different calculation to run. I have sat across from people who felt almost embarrassed admitting they did not understand how the dropout provision worked. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. Almost nobody explains it clearly, and the fear it creates has done more damage than the actual rule ever would. So if the bridge disappears and you decide CPP can wait, where is that income supposed to come from in the meantime? That gap is exactly where the next mistake tends to show up, in the pension-only household with no cash sitting anywhere else. Meet Robert. He is 61, and on paper his retirement looks great. His pension pays $5,000 a month. But look past the monthly check, and his TFSA holds $10,000, which is close to the entire cushion he has outside of that pension. Then the furnace goes, or the roof needs replacing, or a medical cost that provincial health does not cover lands on the kitchen table, somewhere around $25,000. Robert's pension is locked into a fixed monthly deposit. It cannot send an extra $25,000 this month just because he needs it. So he does what a lot of pension-only retirees end up doing. He puts it on a line of credit or a high-interest loan and starts paying interest on an emergency that a healthy retirement plan should have already absorbed. That is the nature of a defined benefit pension. It is built for predictable monthly income, not for a lump sum emergency. The stability that makes it so valuable for covering rent and groceries is the same design that makes it useless the one month you need $25,000 all at once. Now picture the version of Robert who does not end up there. A few years before retiring, he starts treating his TFSA like a pension buffer, not an afterthought. At $7,000 a year, that account can build real liquidity well before the last paycheck arrives. Money that sits outside the fixed monthly pension and is available the moment something breaks. I have sat at kitchen tables where the pension on paper looked enormous, and the couple still could not afford a new furnace, because every dollar of it was already spoken for between the CRA and the grocery bill by the time it landed. A big pension does not automatically mean liquidity. Those are two different problems, and only one of them gets solved by the size of your monthly check. Before you sign the final pension election and lock in your choice, there is one more piece of math waiting. The one involving what happens to your spouse if you are not the one who ends up needing that liquidity. When you fill out your statement of options, one line asks how much of your pension should continue to your spouse if you die first, usually a choice between 60%, 75%, and 100%. Most people take the highest number without thinking twice, because it sounds like the responsible, loving choice. It is not automatically the right one. Statistics Canada data shows women outlive men by roughly 4 years on average, so this decision matters more than it looks like on the form. But automatically, taking the 100% option can quietly cost you more than it protects. Moving from a 60% survivor benefit to 100% can reduce your own monthly check by around $400. Over 20 years of retirement, that is $96,000 paid in insurance for a risk that may not exist the way you assume it does. Before you default to 100%, look at what your spouse already has coming on their own. CPP alone pays around $925 a month on average, and OAS adds another $742.31 a month in the current quarter for someone 65 to 74. If your spouse already has solid income of their own, whether from their own pension, CPP, or savings, paying full price for the maximum survivor benefit can mean overinsuring against a gap that was never really there. A 75% survivor option often lands closer to the real gap, covering most of the loss without paying full price for protection you may not need. This is not about being less devoted to your spouse. It is about spending $96,000 where it is actually needed, instead of where the form makes it feel safest to check the highest box. 4 things to walk away with. Check whether the annuity leveling option actually fits your health and your plans for your early retirement years, instead of dismissing it because a spreadsheet calls it a tease. File Form T1032 and split your pension income before 65 if the math supports it, not after the accountant finds it for you in April. Do not let the fear of a broken CPP calculation push you into taking it early out of pure loss aversion. The dropout provision is built for exactly that gap. And build a TFSA buffer before you retire, because a big monthly pension does not fix a $25,000 problem that shows up in a single month. A pension is a tool. It is not a cage, and it is not a test you can fail this late in the process. You already did the hard part, showing up and earning it for 30 years. What is left is simply making sure the paperwork matches the life you actually want. If this helped you make sense of your own statement of options, subscribe. We build more of these Canadian pension playbooks every week.